when, gas was like super cheap, like under $2 a gallon?
Yeah.
Feels like ages ago, right?
Yeah, it does.
But there's something else that's like snuck into our lives without us even noticing, you know?
Mm.
And it all comes back to this guy, Milton Friedman.
Oh, interesting.
It's kind of wild, like we're living in his world now.
Really?
Even if most folks don't know who he is, you know?
Uh,
You sent us some fascinating stuff about this whole neoliberalism thing.
right.
And we're going to like really dig into how it went from like a fringe idea to
Oh, wow.
this huge force shaping like everything.
Yeah, it's really remarkable how that happened.
Yeah.
It really is. I think in this deep dive, we're going to trace the journey of neoliberalism from its origins to its impact on you today.
Okay.
So we're going to be exploring the key thinkers, the historical context,
Right.
and how it's changed the way we view government, the market, and even ourselves.
Yeah, so let's rewind the clock way back to like 1947.
Right.
World War II is over. Right?
Yes.
And there's this group of intellectuals. They're hanging out at a ski resort in Montpellier in Switzerland.
Okay.
And they're kind of worried about the direction the world's going in, you know, with governments getting more and more involved in the economy.
Makes sense.
This was like the era of FDR's New Deal.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember that.
Yes. And these thinkers, people like Friedrich Hayek,
Okay.
were very skeptical of this trend.
Mm-hmm.
They actually called themselves the Montpellieran Society.
Oh, wow.
And they firmly believed that too much government intervention would ultimately lead to a loss of individual freedom.
So they weren't exactly fans of big government programs, huh?
No, not really.
Okay.
They felt very strongly that free markets and individual initiative
Okay.
were the true keys to prosperity and liberty.
Okay.
And over time, their ideas kind of came together.
Yeah.
And that's what we now call neoliberalism.
Okay. So neoliberalism, like for those of us who maybe, aren't economics experts.
Can you break that down a little bit?
Yeah, excellent.
Like, what does that actually mean?
So at its core, neoliberalism is a worldview
Okay.
that emphasizes things like individual responsibility,
Okay.
free markets, and limited government. So it's essentially about letting market forces guide the economy with minimal interference from the state.
Gotcha. So it's kind of like a hands-off approach to government, right?
Exactly,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Neoliberals believe that individuals, when driven by self-interest, will naturally make rational choices
Yeah.
that will ultimately benefit society as a whole.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
But didn't Hayek and his buddies, I guess,
Yes.
didn't they kind of face a uphill battle at that time?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Because, I mean, back then, the New Deal was seen as like a big success by a lot of people.
For sure.
And people generally had, more trust in government, right?
You're absolutely right. So in the post-war era,
Yeah.
these ideas were pretty fringe. In fact, Hayek's famous book, The Road to Serfdom,
Right.
which warned against the dangers of government control, was actually seen as quite radical by many.
The Road to Serfdom. That title sounds pretty intense.
Yeah.
Was it like a really dense academic book?
Well, it was certainly a serious work of political philosophy,
Okay.
but Hayek actually wanted to reach a wider audience.
Oh.
And believe it or not, he even had it condensed
Wow.
and published in Reader's Digest.
Reader's Digest. That's wild.
I know, right?
But it still sounds like he was going against the grain at that point.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So how did these seemingly, kind of out there ideas actually to gain traction?
Well, that's where Milton Friedman enters the picture. He was
Okay.
this brilliant economist
Okay.
and an amazing communicator. And he really played a pivotal role in popularizing and spreading neoliberal ideas.
Friedman. Wasn't he the guy with all those, like, witty sayings about the free market?
Yes. He was known for his sharp wit and its ability to explain complex economic concepts in a way that everyone could understand.
Right.
He wrote books, he hosted a TV show,
Wow.
and he was constantly in the media, He became like a celebrity economist, you could say.
Yeah.
And that really helped make neoliberalism more accessible to the general public.
So Friedman kind of brought those ideas out of, like, the ivory tower
Exactly.
and into, like, everyday conversation.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
But the 1950s were, like, the peak of big government programs, right?
Right.
So how did his message actually resonate in that kind of environment?
Well, it was a gradual process,
No.
The post-war economic boom kind of created a sense of complacency. And so Friedman's warnings about the dangers of government overreach
Yeah.
seemed a bit abstract to many at the time.
Yeah.
But he was persistent.
Okay.
He kept arguing that government programs were often inefficient, created dependency, and stifled innovation.
So he was basically saying, like, get the government off our backs
Yeah.
and let us do our thing.
That was the essence of his argument, yes.
Okay.
He truly believed that individuals making their own choices in a free market
Mm-hmm.
would be a far more powerful engine for progress
Right.
than any government program.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this all unfolds, but if these ideas were still kind of on the sidelines in the 50s,
Right.
when did things really start to shift?
Well, that shift really began in the 1970s.
Okay.
A decade marked by economic turmoil
Yeah.
and a real crisis of confidence in government.
Right.
The 1970s were, they were rough, right?
Yeah, no kidding.
Like, remember stagflation?
Yeah.
High inflation, high unemployment,
Yeah.
all at the same time.
Like the economy was just stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like the old rules didn't apply anymore.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember those days. Gas lines, crazy prices. It felt like everything was out of control.
Yeah, it really did. And I think that really shook people's faith in the government, you know?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, could they really manage the economy?
Yeah, like the old playbook wasn't working anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So this turmoil kind of created an opening for new ideas.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Like people were looking for answers.
Absolutely. And Friedman's message about free markets, you
Yeah.
know, less government,
Right.
that started to make a lot of sense to people.
So did that lead to like a sudden shift in policy?
Well, not overnight,
Okay.
but you started to see both political parties
Hmm.
kind of move towards more market-oriented policies.
Wait, so even the Democrats,
Yeah.
who are usually, for a stronger government
Yeah.
role,
Yes.
they started embracing these neoliberal ideas.
Yeah, it's really just, it's like these ideas kind of jumped over
Wow.
the traditional party lines.
That's wild.
Yeah, so for example, remember Bill Clinton back in the 1990s?
Yeah.
He said that famous line, "The era of big government is over."
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Really captured the mood, I think.
That's a pretty bold statement coming from a Democrat.
It really is.
So what worked like some of the policy changes that showed this shift in thinking?
Well, one big one was welfare reform.
Okay.
So Clinton signed this bill,
Okay.
put time limits on benefits,
Mm,
really emphasized work requirements.
right.
The whole idea was to get people off government assistance
Yeah.
and encourage more self-sufficiency.
So it was more about personal responsibility than like a safety net from the government.
Exactly. That was the idea.
Okay.
Of course, it was controversial.
Yeah, for sure.
Critics said it would hurt the most vulnerable.
Right.
But it shows you how neoliberal ideas
Yeah.
were taking hold, even among Democrats.
So were there also changes in like financial regulations around this time?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Another big thing was repealing the Glass-Steagall Act.
Okay. Vaguely remember that.
Yeah, so that was this New Deal law
Mm.
that kept commercial and investment banking separate.
Can you remind me why that was such a big deal?
Yeah, so the whole point of Glass-Steagall
Okay.
was to prevent the kind of risky stuff
Okay.
that led to the '29 crash
Right.
and the Great Depression.
Yeah.
It was supposed to keep the financial system stable.
So why did they repeal it?
Well, by the 90s,
Yeah.
a lot of people thought Glass-Steagall was outdated,
Mm.
holding back the economy.
Okay.
They said getting rid of it would mean more competition,
Right.
more innovation.
Looking back, that seems kind of risky.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Did anyone like raise concerns about that at the time?
Oh, absolutely. Some people were like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
This could lead to banks taking more risks
Right.
and maybe make the whole system less stable.
And those concerns weren't just from one party, right?
No, it was a debate across party lines.
Oh, okay.
You know, a complicated issue,
Yeah.
valid arguments on both sides.
Right.
But in the end, the push for deregulation won out, kind of reflecting that bigger shift towards neoliberalism.
So it wasn't just Clinton, right?
Oh.
Like other Democratic presidents continued down this path.
Yeah, even Obama,
Hmm.
who
Yeah.
came in during the financial crisis,
Yeah.
he largely stuck with these market-oriented policies.
That's surprising. You'd think a crisis like that
Yeah.
would made people rethink that whole hands-off approach.
Yeah, you would think, right.
Yeah.
But it's complicated.
Mhm.
You know, the response to 2008 was a mix of things.
Okay.
Government stepped in sometimes,
Mhm.
but the belief in free markets, that was still strong.
So we've gone from this small group of intellectuals
Right.
in the Swiss Alps
Yeah.
to these massive policy shifts
I know.
in both parties.
It's amazing.
It's wild how an idea that started so small
I know.
became so powerful.
Really is.
But it's not just about politics and economics, is it?
No, not at all.
It's like neoliberalism has seeped into everything.
It really has.
Like how we think about ourselves, the world. What do you mean by that? How has it affected our, like, everyday lives? So you're saying, like, neoliberalism isn't just about, like, loss and stuff. It's actually changed how we think about ourselves.
It really has, yeah.
I gotta admit, that's kind of freaky.
Think about it. How much do we focus on, like, individual achievement?
Yeah.
Competition, always trying to be better.
Great.
We talk about maximizing our human capital. It's
Yeah.
like we're all mini businesses competing.
Yeah, it's like we always got to be on,
Exactly.
hustling, optimizing, building our brand.
And if we're not succeeding,
Yeah.
whose fault is it?
It's got to be our own, right?
That's the neoliberal logic.
Yeah. And it can feel, like, really empowering sometimes.
Oh, for sure.
But also, like, a ton of pressure.
Absolutely. It's exhausting.
Yeah, like you got to be more productive, more efficient.
More marketable.
Yeah, it's never enough.
It never ends.
And doesn't it seem like social media just makes all this worse?
Oh, definitely.
Everyone's showing their, like, perfect life.
Yeah, it's like this giant marketplace where we're all trying to sell ourselves.
Right. Showing off what we've done, comparing
Yeah.
ourselves to everyone else.
Exactly.
So it's gone way beyond just the economy.
Oh, yeah.
It's how we see ourselves, our relationships, like our whole place in the world.
Our whole worldview, yeah.
This is deep stuff.
It is, yeah.
But if we're, like, starting to question all this, what are the alternatives?
Yes.
Like, where do we even go from here?
That's the million-dollar question, right? Honestly, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
There's no one ideology that's just going to fix everything.
Right.
But people are trying different things.
Okay.
Different ways to run our economies, our societies.
Like what? Give us some examples. What are people thinking about?
Well, one idea that's gaining some traction is focusing on common.
Like commons.
Yeah, the stuff we all share.
Okay.
Like parks, libraries, even the internet.
Right. So instead of just looking out for ourselves,
Exactly.
we focus on stuff that benefits everyone.
It's about realizing we're all connected. We're responsible for each other and for the planet.
It's kind of like the opposite of that me attitude, right?
Exactly.
The opposite of that hyper-individualism.
Right.
Like that.
Another thing that's challenging the status quo is this idea of degrowth.
Degrowth, that's a new one.
Yeah, it basically questions this idea that we need constant economic growth.
Wow, really? Like questioning growth itself.
Yeah.
Seems like our whole system is built on that.
It is, but the people who support degrowth,
Right.
they say this endless growth, it's just not sustainable.
Mm.
Environmentally, socially, it's got to stop.
Okay, so what, we just stop making stuff?
Not exactly. It's about shifting our focus
Okay.
away from consuming more and more
Right.
and towards living more simply, more sustainably.
That's pretty radical, I gotta say.
It is, but it's gaining momentum.
Hmm.
People are seeing the limits of our planet,
Right.
the inequality that comes with all this growth.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's about finding ways to live well without needing more all the time.
That's a really powerful idea, especially with, climate change, running out of resources, all that.
It is, and it's not just about what we do as individuals.
Right.
We need systemic change, too.
Okay.
Policies that prioritize, sustainability and well-being.
Yeah, not just profits.
Exactly.
So it sounds like we're at this kind of crossroads.
I think so, yeah.
We can keep going down this neoliberal path.
Right.
Or we can try something different.
Yeah, focus on community, sustainability, the common good.
It's not about finding perfect answers.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
It's about being aware of the choices we're making.
And asking what kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly. What kind of future we want to create.
Yeah.
Wow, this deep dive is giving me a lot to think about.
It's a powerful example of how ideas matter.
For sure.
The stories we tell ourselves about how the world works, they really shape our lives.
Maybe it's time for a new story, one that leads to the future we want.
I think so.
Thanks for taking us on this journey. It's been amazing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And to all our listeners, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our future deep dives.
We've got a lot more to explore.
See you next time.